It was 1898. The world was moving faster than ever before. Electricity lit up cities. Automobiles rattled down cobblestone streets. Inventions seemed to appear every month, transforming daily life. And out on the seas, a new era of engineering was dawning. Giant liners, vast floating palaces of steel and steam were carrying thousands of people across the oceans. Amid this fever of progress, in a small, quiet room, a little-known writer picked up his pen. His name was Morgan Robertson. He was about to write a story of the sea, about a ship unlike any the world had ever known. He called it the Titan, the largest, strongest, and supposedly unsinkable vessel ever conceived. 14 years later, in 1912, another ship would rise from blueprint to reality. Its name, the Titanic. And when it set sail, its fate would mirror Robertson's imagined tale, almost detail for detail. Was this foresight? A warning? A chilling coincidence? Or something that brushes against the edges of the mysterious? Morgan Robertson was not a household name. Born in 1861, the son of a ship captain, the sea was woven into the fabric of his life. As a boy, he learned the sounds of waves and rigging, the discipline of sailors, and the dangers hidden beneath the horizon. He went to sea himself, serving as a merchant sailor for many years. Those years carved deep lines of knowledge into him, the kind of knowledge that only comes from a life lived on deck under harsh weather and in the company of men who risked their lives with every voyage. When Robertson turned to writing, he carried the sea with him. His stories were full of storms and shipwrecks, heroes and tragedies. They were adventure tales, but they were grounded in reality. He wrote not from imagination alone, but from experience. The creak of timbers, the icy spray of salt water, the ever-present awareness that the ocean could not be tamed. Yet in 1898, he published something different, a novella called Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan. It didn't make headlines. Few readers could have guessed that this obscure story, ignored at the time, would one day be revisited as one of the most astonishing coincidences in modern history. In Robertson's novella, the Titan was the largest ship the world had ever seen. It stretched 800 feet from bow to stern. Built of the strongest steel, it was designed to withstand anything the sea could throw at it. It was described as unsinkable, a marvel of modern engineering and a triumph of human ambition. Its maiden voyage was in April. The ship departed England, bound for New York, carrying thousands of passengers. The decks glittered with wealth and luxury. Music played. The finest wines were poured. The Titan was not just a ship. It was a floating city, a symbol of pride, power, and progress. But the ocean has a way of humbling even the greatest of human creations. On a cold April night in the North Atlantic, under a starlit sky, the Titan struck an iceberg. The impact was devastating. The steel hull, thought to be indestructible, was torn open. Water flooded in, and soon the unsinkable ship was sinking. There were not enough lifeboats. Panic spread across the decks. Families were separated. Wealth and status meant little in the icy darkness. More than half of those on board were lost to the freezing sea. It was fiction, and yet it read like prophecy. 14 years later, in 1912, the RMS Titanic was unveiled to the world. The pride of the White Star Line, the Titanic was, at the time, the largest ship ever built. 882 feet long, constructed of the finest steel, she was celebrated as the pinnacle of naval engineering. She was called, with supreme confidence, unsinkable. Like Robertson's Titan, the Titanic set sail on her maiden voyage in April, departing from England to New York. On board were over 2,000 passengers, wealthy industrialists, hopeful immigrants, families seeking a new life. Its decks were a microcosm of society, from lavish first-class salons to the crowded quarters of third class. And then, the night of April 14th. The North Atlantic lay still and cold, its waters black under a moonless sky. Just before midnight, the Titanic struck an iceberg at high speed. The steel hull, thought to be unbreakable, split open. The sea poured in, and just like the Titan, there were not enough lifeboats. Chaos erupted. Men, women, and children struggled against fate. Some were saved. Many more were lost. More than 1,500 souls perished that night. The parallels with Robertson's story were undeniable. The size, the speed, the voyage, the month, the iceberg, even the fatal shortage of lifeboats. It was as if the Titan had come to life, only to meet the same tragic end. Was Morgan Robertson a prophet? Was futility a prediction, or merely an accident of chance? The truth lies somewhere in between. Robertson was no fortune teller, but he was a man of the sea. He knew the arrogance of the shipping industry in his time. In the late 19th century, companies were locked in a race to build bigger, faster, more luxurious liners. Safety was too often sacrificed to prestige. To Robertson, it was only logical that such pride would lead to disaster. Yet the details, the name Titan, the month of April, the route across the North Atlantic, the iceberg, the missing lifeboats, remain almost impossibly close. Too close for many to dismiss as coincidence. And so, more than a century later, the names Titan and Titanic remain bound together. One a work of fiction, the other a devastating reality. Together, may they remind us of the fragility of human ambition when set against the power of nature. And that was the story of a fictional ship that seemed to sail straight into reality. The Titan, imagined. The Titanic, real. A tale that blurs the line between coincidence and prophecy. But this is not the only time that a story or a diary seemed to whisper of disaster before it struck. In our next episode, we'll step back to the 17th century, to a journal that chronicled the streets of London days before fire turned the city to ash. Until then, if this story intrigued you, please consider subscribing to The Lost Journal. Every story leaves a trace, and you won't want to miss the next one.